Thank you. It's an honor to be here. A lot of times you have to be dead before people say such nice things about you. But I get to be alive and hear them, so thank you for that wonderful introduction. And I appreciate the honor that you're giving to me, but I want to right now, straight off at the very beginning, say that I'd like to pass all this honor unto God, because what you see in me that you might like is what God has done for me and in me. And it's been through him and because of him that I have been able to do what I've done. It's by his strength. Am I still on? Yeah, okay. When God called me to be executive director of Oregon Right to Life 23 years ago, I knew nothing about being executive director. I had been a wife and a mother and a volunteer for various things. I'd never been to college. I'm sorry to say that for all, since I'm at school, but I never had the opportunity or was able to take it. So I learned a lot the way God taught me. And even though I had never had that particular experience, the biggest desire of my heart was to please God, to follow him where he wanted me to go. And I didn't know that particularly when my girls left for home. They graduated from college and moved away. God led me into the pro-life movement. When I said yes to God to do this, my greatest fear was that I was going to do some horrible mistake that was going to cause Oregon Right to Life to come crashing down. I was going to ruin it. So God right away stepped in with the very first promise that he gave me from Psalm 37. He said, "You may stumble, but you will not fall. For the mighty hand of the Lord upholds you." And that promise I lived by for 22 years. And I learned the first and most important thing about God. He is faithful. Now, I knew that before, but I didn't have to push the limits of how faithful he was until I became executive director and needed him every moment, every day, to do things I had never done before. And no one had ever taught me. So God taught me. He taught me how to public speak. He taught me how to read bills and laws. He taught me how to read legal briefs. He taught me how to write. I think I had a high school writing class, and I hear you teach composition at this school, and kids, learn it, because you never know when God's going to be using that in you. So God taught me all of those things, and it was he that did it. He gave me wisdom. He promises to give wisdom when you ask him and really need it. And he did. He gave me wisdom every single solitary day when I needed it every day. I have two wonderful friends from the office that are here tonight, and they know how much I needed all of this wisdom. He was faithful to encourage me. I'll be very honest, as brave as you think I am, and I am, I guess I'll go into that in a minute, there were some very discouraging things that happened in 22 years that got me down in the dumps. I would turn to God, and God would encourage me in all various ways, perk me back up, get me on my feet, get me going again. Occasionally, he had to resort to miracles in order to encourage me. And one I will tell you about, there were several through the 22 years. I was lobbying a bill at the Capitol, and I want to tell you, there's no words to tell you how horrible it is for the pro-lifers to lobby a bill in the Capitol. You are in spiritual warfare every single day. I see Sally nodding her head. She knows what it's like. And there was one particular bill, and one time I was so depressed, and I am not by nature a person that gets depressed. but I was. It physically pained me to get out of bed, get dressed, and drive up the freeway. I live in Eugene, so it was a long drive. Well, that particular morning when it was just beyond misery, I was praying up to God. I said, God, you have to help me. I can't go another day. And God, I don't want to remember a Bible verse. I want something I can touch. So I got to the Capitol, jumped out of the car, and started doing my work that day, and forgot about the prayer because there you are, busy. I was waiting outside the lobby of the House that day for something, just waiting. And all of a sudden, without knowing it, I felt a hand on my shoulder. Someone had come up and, how you squeeze from the side. And I looked up, and I saw a big, tall man that I had never seen before. And I was there every single holiday in the Capitol. Never seen before. And I looked up, and he looked down at me, and he said, God loves you. And I was shocked beyond belief, and I said thank you, and he walked away. I never saw him again. Now, I am telling you that was an angel. If it wasn't an angel, it was a man that was sent directly to that Capitol for me to answer God's prayer. Well, I don't have to tell you that I was perked up and ready to go again. So he did similar things to that occasionally when I really, really needed it. God was faithful. God is faithful. And it's a lesson I got burned into my soul. We'll never forget it. Another thing God taught me was how to be brave and courageous. And that means to want to fear God more than fearing man. And once you decide you care more what God thinks about you than what man thinks about you, you're free. Because you're free to be who you are and to go about doing what God has set you to do. Many times in many places, I was the only known pro-lifer in a group of people. I'm sure there were some closet ones. But I have right to life stamped on my forehead. And everybody knew it was it was always a little amusing to me because people didn't want to, it wasn't politically correct to spend a lot of time talking to me or for people to think they were a friend of mine. So I always got just a little secret chuckle inside myself. But you're just friendly and gracious, and they are who you are, and they are who you are. But you don't, you're free. You're free. You don't have to impress them. You don't have to care what they care about you because you are caring what God cares about you. I am so proud of Oregon Right to Life, and I've got a couple fellow workers here. They are committed, just like I was, and they're still there, committed to do what's right by the Lord in saving babies. Quite often, we as an organization were one of the very few organizations that was really ready to stand up in the arena for life. God has so many pro-lifers in the state. It's just a blessing to hear from them or meet them occasionally, get mail from them, send in their PAC donations, whatever it is, it's an honor. But they need someone to be a public figure to speak out for them and say what they would like to say. And I was honored to quite often be that public figure, and it was an honor to be able to do that. And they need someone to lead the charge in many areas. Just, okay, come on, gang, let's go. And Oregon Right to Life and myself were the ones sometimes to do that leading, and it was an honor to do that. God taught me in being brave that it doesn't mean necessarily that you're not going to be scared. Sometimes I was actually petrified to do what was right. I remember this is actually before I was executive director. I was very active in the Eugene chapter, and I was called to speak at the University of Oregon. It was the first time. I don't have to describe University of Oregon to you, and I don't have to describe how scared I was to go into a classroom. For my very first time, it did get easier. But I was so scared that I didn't have any saliva in my mouth. I didn't know you could get that scared, and my tongue wouldn't work because you have to have saliva in your mouth that your tongue work. I was shocked, and I realized that that is probably where the phrase "scared spitless" comes from. So there were many times, various occasions, that I was very scared to do what I knew God had called me to do. But I realized that people cannot see your heart thumping. It's not going like this. And they can't see your stomach churning. And they can't see God holding you up, which is what He did every single solid time to get me through. One of my scariest times was always testifying at the legislature, because the bad guys can ream you out while you're sitting there if they want to, and it's not very fun. But God holds you. Brave, by its very definition, does not mean what you're doing is going to be easy. Doing what is right is always the hardest path to take. Let me tell you, it's always the hardest decision when you're going to make the decision to do what's right. And it almost always is going against the mainstream. Otherwise, it wouldn't be brave. Let's just be honest about it. But I say again, if God has called you to do something that really matters, it doesn't really matter what people think. You're fearing God instead of man. I think many of you may be familiar with this last session of the legislature, where there was a particular bill that was going to allow food and water to be taken away from conscious, non-dying, mentally incapable people, Alzheimer's. When that bill, I first saw that bill on my desk, I saw all the people that had signed on to the bill. And I knew that the bill was on its way to passage, because the vast majority of legislators were in favor of it. A lot of even the some pro-lifers had even signed onto the bill. And I thought it was a horrible bill, but my goose was cooked. But God gave me a definite personal word from Him to go fight that bill. It was uphill, and it was excruciatingly difficult. I didn't do it alone. Our whole office did it, didn't we, Mary and Don? The whole office did it. But we did do it. We won. We stopped that bill. And I praise God. It wasn't easy. But everyone, we fought the insurance companies, the big insurance companies of Oregon. We fought, even the state of Oregon was in favor of that bill. So we fought Goliath, but we also know the story of David and Goliath and who won. So God won this one. I also will say, and I'll also say, that being brave means you don't always win. I lost more than I won. I'll tell you right now. I don't like to lose. Mary came into my room one time. Remember, I was crying on my desk because I thought we'd lost that bill. You probably don't remember. I do, because I don't cry in the office very often. I cry other places. I don't like to lose. However, when we lose, in one sense, it's okay, because I know that we have done everything we could do, the hardest we could do, and we did it exactly what God wanted us to do. He doesn't promise we'll always win, but he always will use it for good. Whatever we did, people were affected, and God will use what we did for good. We may see it, we may not see it, but he does not waste our efforts when he's told us to do something. God also taught me, this is very, very important, that serving him was more important than serving the pro-life ministry. Now, this may seem a little strange to you, but what I mean is that the ends do not justify the means. And it's very important that as we serve in a ministry, that we do it in a godly and honorable way, as serving unto God. The Lord tells us in the New Testament, do everything as unto the Lord. So it means whatever we do in our ministry, our first responsibility is to God, to serve and to work honorably and beyond reproach in all that we do. And we're seeing a lot of people that have been called down for having a lot of reproaches against them lately. We must be gracious and kind to others. And like Jerry said, smiling. God just gave me a smile. I can't. I think that's why he put me here, so I will just smile at people. But we must be gracious and kind to those that don't know the truth. And our goal is to leave a Christian witness behind us as we have served in the ministry that we have served in. Finally, these are important. I'm telling you the most important lessons. I had a lot, but these are like the most important. God embedded in my mind at the very beginning, again, of when I started, from Proverbs, listen to advice and accept counsel, and in the end you will be wise. Proverbs is full of the fool disregards instruction. The wise man takes discipline. No person is an island. God has not given anybody all the wisdom they need to do something. We need each other. I have seen in my time Christian ministries crumble and fall because the leader would not take advice from anyone. They were the one. Proverbs says, plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. I had 4 boards I was answerable to. So among those boards were wise men and wise counsel. And my job was to listen to them, to discern it, boil it down, and to go out and use it in a godly and honorable way. These are some of the most important lessons God taught me, and I am honored to have been able to serve him, to serve the pro-lifers of this country, of the state, and the babies of this state. I'm happy to say that abortion rates dropped considerably during the time I was there, and we... So God used me and pro-lifers all throughout the state and in Oregon Right to Life ministries and in other pro-life ministries. But God is there ready, willing, and able to help each one of us. And I want to thank you for allowing me to be here and to be honored with your special certificate. And thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Gayle. On behalf of the Board of Directors of St. John Bosco High School, the staff and students and parents, we'd like to present you with this honorary diploma awarded to Gayle Atteberry in recognition of her role as exemplar of prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance character at St. John Bosco High School this second day of December, Anno Domini 2017. Thank
you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I don't have my first diploma, so.
Oh, very good.
I didn't do that.
Very good. Thank you so much.